So we are currently in a time where we are seeing Tesla stock down over 34% year to date, making it one of the worst performing players within the S&P 500, while simultaneously we're seeing Boeing only down 27% year to date, which the reason why I even bring Boeing into the picture is because Boeing has had a lot of controversy. I mean, we're literally seeing planes with their doors fly off and the panels disappear. I mean, it's pretty bad. Yet Boeing still year to date is outperforming Tesla, and so that's a bit concerning. And of course, that really tells you everything you have to know. Now, back in December 28th, when I made a video talking about how Tesla was overpriced from a technical perspective and a fundamental perspective, I got a lot of hate, right? I got a lot of individuals saying, no, that's completely wrong. Yet here we are today with Tesla stock much lower. Now, just a couple of days ago, I made a video titled Major Move Coming to Tesla, and pretty much the video was about how there was more selling pressure coming, in my opinion, and here we are today with Tesla again still falling down. And so I want to go ahead and provide an update of where I see Tesla going next. And of course, I don't have a crystal ball. These are just some of the things that I'm going to be watching, but I also want to clarify something, that this isn't a doom and gloom video, right? I'm honestly bullish for Tesla in the long term. Despite that, for the last few months, I've made a lot of bearish content for Tesla, but that just means that, look, I'm not buying Tesla right now, right? I'm just waiting for a good opportunity where we see confirmation of an uptrend. We're not there yet, but that doesn't mean that I'm throwing Tesla out of the picture. There's been a lot of pessimism in regards to Tesla, especially when it's been pretty much falling down off a cliff while everyone else is just going to the moon. But that doesn't really change my perspective on Tesla. In fact, I actually have some good news to share with you guys, right? So, I mean, in the previous video, I highlighted some of the optimism that we're seeing from Goldman Sachs and their report from, AI and humanoids, which we'll go ahead and touch on further in this video. But I want to highlight something else that is pretty notable, and that is this column right here in the Wall Street Journal. Now, I know, yes, I do still read the newspaper. I know all of this stuff is online, but I pay a little extra to get the paper. I still like it, right? Now, the one thing I want to highlight is this column right over here, where it highlights how Honda and Nissan weigh their EV partnership. Now, what makes this pretty interesting is in this column, we have them say that while EV sales have seen a slower growth globally since last year, Honda and Nissan are both committed to electrifying their fleets, and how Nissan says it wants to electrify its vehicles to make up more than 55% of its sales globally by 2030 and all electric by 2040. And so the reason why this is still good news is because we're seeing pretty much the top three automakers in Japan still stating that, look, we're late to the game, but we do want to enter the EV space and eventually fully commit. And I know that's kind of stating that there's competition entering into the markets and more EVs are going to come. But at the same time, it kind of just signals that Tesla is in the right path. You have a lot of legacy media outlets saying, look, EVs are garbage, it's not something that's going to happen, it's a fad. But the reality is we're still seeing a lot of these legacy automakers saying that they want to transition. They just haven't been able to do it successfully, and I think that's something that we have to kind of understand. Right now, yes, things are bad for Tesla, and further on in this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the areas I'm looking into in order to buy more in regards to Tesla stock. But look, yeah, things are bad, but I'm still bullish long term. Now, before we go ahead and hop into my laptop, I just want to highlight this article over here, how Tesla is going to be raising its Model Y prices in the US by 1K and in other parts of Europe by 2K. Now, I know some individuals are going to be throwing this off as whatever news, but the reason why this is pretty interesting is because we've seen Tesla in the last few quarters pretty much continuously bring down their prices. Now, they were doing this in order to stir up demand in the high interest rate environment. As we all know, interest rates are high, and if you're going to finance a vehicle, even with good stellar credit in the 800 credit score area, you're still paying at least 7%, which is very difficult, right? People don't buy cars cash oftentimes, and for those that do, well, all power to you, but a majority of people that buy cars, they finance it. And so this was something that Tesla was doing, but the problem was that it wasn't really stirring up the demand that Tesla initially thought it would, and it kind of trained a lot of its consumers to kind of wait and say, look, I'm not going to buy a Tesla because I think in the next month is probably going to be cheaper. And so that's kind of bad, right? And we haven't really seen more price decreases that drastic like we did pretty much in the I guess 2 quarters ago, but we're seeing prices start to go up, and that's good news. And we're also seeing Tesla now focus more on its advertising. And I mean, this is anecdotal, this is just what I'm seeing, right? Because every time I hop onto YouTube just to watch any video, I'm bombarded with Tesla ads, which is something that's brand new. I used to never get Tesla ads. I mean, Tesla was pretty much against advertising for the longest, and now they're kind of understanding the importance of letting people know what is actually within the vehicle. A lot of people don't know the capabilities of Teslas, and so this is actually good news. Now I want to go ahead and hop into my laptop and kind of talk about some other positive pieces of information regarding Tesla, as well as just kind of talk about what are my views on Tesla, both from a short-term perspective and also a long-term perspective as well. But before we do so, just a friendly reminder that if you have not done so already, consider tapping that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future upload. And with that said, let's go ahead and hop into my laptop. All right, so we are in my laptop taking a look at Tesla stock, and I want to go ahead and touch on it from a technical perspective, but I also want to touch on a few additional pieces that are pertinent to the discussion of Tesla. I want to go ahead and talk about what we're looking for going forward, as well as what some analysts are also saying. Now, for a while now, I've been talking about this $155 area for Tesla, as there's been this gap, and I talked about Tesla most likely filling up this gap. And for a while, it was seen as absurd, crazy. However, we're only 5 points away from there. So it's honestly not too crazy. It's not out of the picture anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and update what the view is once we kind of hit that, $155 area. But I also want to talk about the perspective of why I'm still bullish on Tesla, right? I know it's very difficult to be bullish when things are going down. And again, to reinstate what I said earlier, just because I'm bullish long term doesn't mean that I think right now is a great time to buy. I didn't think back here was a great time to buy. Back when everyone was saying that $180 was the bottom, I wasn't buying. I didn't think that was a great area, despite everyone thinking that this was confirmation. We never got the confirmation. And here we are, and I still don't think it's a good time to buy. But of course, you should only trade or invest in whatever you see value in. Now, in the previous video, you may have seen it, or maybe perhaps you're new to the channel if you've never seen it, but I talked about Goldman Sachs and what they published in the research, and they were very optimistic on humanoid robots. They changed their thesis on it. They thought that it was a $6 billion market, and now they changed it to 6 times much more higher than what they did last year, right? It's growing what their idea is of what that market is looking like. And I kind of touched on the reasons why they see it growing. I'm not going to go ahead and break that down. But I also want to clarify that, yes, I am bullish for Tesla, but I can't necessarily factor in the humanoid robots into my financial models, right? When you do your fundamental analysis, it's a lot of it's based on assumptions. That's true, but you try to keep it as accurate as you can. And so it's plausible that most likely Tesla is going to be the leader in AI, or not AI, but robotics. And I talked about the reason why they're the ones with the fastest robots, the more their humanoid robots also have the most freedom. They're the lightest ones. There's a lot more advancements in the Tesla humanoid robots in comparison to companies that have been in robotics for a much longer duration. And so Tesla's looking pretty good, but again, you can't underwrite that valuation just yet. Yes, am I optimistic for it? Absolutely, but I can't underwrite that. Now, we had Morgan Stanley's analyst Adam Jonas recently state that they're still bullish, right? He said that they had this 320 price target for Tesla, and that's comprised of their auto hardware, their auto-related software services, and energy-related businesses. They also said that while Tesla's competencies in computer vision, machine learning, and AI and robotics have a multitude of adjacent commercial applications, we have not yet included such revenue streams, including Optimus, in our model and valuation at this time. And I 100% agree with that analyst from Morgan Stanley. Everyone's very optimistic. Tesla is poised to be the winner in the robotics space. Now, can things change? Of course. Things can change at any time. But at the current moment, we are seeing Tesla being the leader in that space. But it's still a very early on period, and you don't want to kind of throw off your financial models by underwriting that in to the valuation, right? You can't do that. It's not easy to do. If you do, right, theoretically you can, but it's too many assumptions. And so the reason I point this out is because that's pretty bullish. That even without factoring the humanoid robots, Morgan Stanley still sees that $320 price target for Tesla, and so that's great, right? Because it's almost about double kind of where we are from now. And so I think there's going to be some opportunities in the near future, but right now is a difficult time. So let's go ahead and we'll touch on some other additional pieces in news for Tesla, but I want to go ahead and kind of just highlight this area right over here. What am I looking for, right? Well, it's the same thing that I was looking for back when Tesla was at $180. I was waiting for confirmation of an uptrend. And there's multiple ways that you could look for confirmation of an uptrend. I talk about it within the Push and Profit private group. But essentially, we're looking for it to fill this gap. And the idea is, are we going to start falling below? Or are we going to start bouncing up at a certain level? And of course, I'll update what that level is in the future video. Right now, I don't think it's an appropriate time to kind of talk about that because we still haven't hit it. But when we do touch it, or if we do touch it, because there is a possibility that we may never touch it, right? Of course, I don't have a crystal ball. I want to remind everyone about that. But the idea is, I'm not going to just blindly buy Tesla just because it fills up this gap. I want to wait for that confirmation. However, one thing that I did point out in a recent video is that there's very little volume relative to price over here. And so that's a bit concerning when there's been a lot of selling pressure. And the reason why is because when there's little volume relative to price and there's selling pressure, that's where you see the biggest moves. When there's a lot of volume relative to price, that's where you see consolidation, things moving sideways, right? Why? Well, that's because you have the buyers and the sellers both pushing price directions in opposite ends. And so right now, little volume relative to price. If the sellers continue to come in, well, that could drastically push things down. But vice versa, if there's buying pressure, well, that could push things upwards. And I do believe that there are going to be some opportunities once we get closer to that $150 area. But the idea is I still don't know if it's going to hold up around over here. If it does, great. Then the next area is like, well, this is going to still be your area of resistance. If it doesn't, well, we could potentially see much more selling going down. And some people are even stating that Tesla could go back to its previous low on the daily chart of $101. Again, none of us know the for sure answer. If we did, that would be a different story. But that's kind of the view on Tesla from a technical perspective. I'm just waiting on the sidelines. People keep asking me, well, what are you doing, right? Are you buying Tesla? No, I'm not. I'm putting capital in so many different names. We talked about it within the Push and Profit private group. I mean, we talked about how gold was doing good, and then we talked about how the gold miners were going to be catching up. And then recently we talked about copper. And again, I'm going to try to keep the trade ideas that I talk about within the Push and Profit private group exclusive. So I'm not going to go ahead and delve into them in this video. If you want to check that out, it's going to be the first link in the description down below. But essentially, there's been many other opportunities in regards to Tesla. I mean, Tesla, in comparison to its constituents in the Magnificent Seven, has been doing horrible, absolutely horrible, and it's tough, right? Because I still have exposure to Tesla, but when you look at companies like let's go ahead and pull up Meta, right? MTA, formerly known as Facebook, Meta, great, right? Of course, it's kind of consolidating right now. We take a look at Nvidia. This was actually a trade idea I talked about breaking out within the Push and Profit private group, and this was a trade idea. I have it in my long-term position. It's up 92% year to date. Well, at one point, I'm sorry. Right now, it's at around like 70 something because it did come down a bit, right? But I talked about this as a swing trade, so I did take a swing trade with this in my short-term trading account. But I also have bought this in my long-term portfolio as well. Absolutely banger of an idea. And again, I'm not going to go through the entirety of the Magnificent Seven, but you guys see the picture. Everything else is up, while Tesla is pretty much down. And as I stated in the beginning of this video, Tesla's doing worse than Boeing, right? Let's take a look at Boeing. Boeing's down, but it's understandable when you have planes just falling apart, right? I mean, now the next flight I'm looking at, I'm going to be making sure, well, is this a Boeing, 737 or, I'm just, that's my thing. But let's go ahead and talk about some additional good news for Tesla, right? I don't want to kind of go off tangent, right? Let's go ahead and talk about this. So we recently had a new update with FSD, and we had V12.3 come out, and we had someone on X.com, not a big notable figure, but just just individual sharing his experience, and he said that now there's just this better, smoother, he actually used the term buttery, smooth roundabout
just as far as Tesla taking on that. And this is actually with rain drizzling down. And so that's pretty impressive. We are seeing more strides in fully self-driving. And that's something that I don't have underwritten in my financial model as well. I know some people like Kathy Wood kind of underwrite robo-taxis. I don't do that just yet, especially because when it comes to just FSD, there are going to be some significant restrictions due to just laws, right? Legislation about what is likely going to take place. Is this going to be allowed, right? Especially because right now FSD is still in beta mode where you have to keep your hands on the wheel. It's not that you could just put your car to drive and let it go. Some people do that, but you're not supposed to, right? Now, if we go to the event where you can, and Teslas are capable of pretty much navigating just entirety or several different terrains, well, that's great, but is it going to be allowed? And so that's something that we're still not in yet. And of course, once that takes place, I'll kind of start to factor in that in my model, especially the idea of robo-taxis, but I can't right now. But we are seeing strides, and I'm very optimistic for this as well, especially because the roads are a very dangerous place. I mean, for those that follow the channel, recently in a bad accident, I was driving. Well, I was actually the passenger. We were driving fine on the road, not even speeding or anything, and someone just kind of tapped into us and drove off, right? And that could happen. And so I'm still dealing with the ramifications of the pain from the accident. And I ideally want to be optimistic of a future where we could have AI kind of steer people and lead to people not driving recklessly. So that's something that we're looking to. But let's go ahead and share what Sawyer Merritt said on X about the humanoid robots. Now, he's someone who's a very notable figure on X, has over 640,000 followers, pretty much a great guy to follow, very up to date with a lot of the news. Sometimes I want to post something about Tesla, some news, and I can't because he posted it like 2 minutes earlier. So it's kind of like, man, what is this guy doing? But anyways, so he mentioned that humanoid robot demo videos are shiny and look great, but ultimately what is important is whether these companies can produce these bots at scale and profitability. And the reason he said that is because we're seeing I believe it's Figure AI, show the capabilities of their robots, but it's all programmed. It's not like anything that's of any substance, and it's very easy. It's kind of like the cars, right? We saw a lot of automakers make their EVs and make these cars that were show model cars, and that's all great, but can they scale it up? And not many, or pretty much most companies have not been able to scale up EVs like Tesla has. And he goes on to say that Elon's companies, specifically Tesla and SpaceX, have proven to be world-class manufacturers, and this is partly why I think they will excel in the humanoid bot space, and I totally agree with this. I believe that, yes, not only are they ahead in the humanoid robotic space, but they're most likely going to be the ones that could scale up much more faster than some of the other competitors. Now, he says to this day, no other automakers in North America or Europe besides Tesla is making EVs profitable. I'm reading this all messed up. But you guys, basically what I just said like a second ago. And so making a prototype and programming it to do tasks for a video is easy, right? It's just kind of like the cars. It's like when you make an EV car, yeah, it's nice to make one, but can you do, millions of them, right? That's really the reality of things. And so making and shipping he just says it in the next sentence. Making and shipping millions of them profitably is a whole different ballgame. Tesla's Optimus team has proven they can make significant progress in a very short period of time, and the company has a lot of compute to rapidly improve the bot's vision system. Can't wait to see where they are in the next 1 to 2 years. And so I think that what Tesla is doing in terms of FSD is going to be phenomenally, it's just going to transfer extremely well into the robotics humanoid space, because the idea of FSD is that it's learning from what it sees on the road, and that's probably going to do well for a robot that watches you fold clothes and then immediately knows what to do. And so very optimistic, again, not factored into my model, but that's actually bullish. That's bullish. I'm still bullish on Tesla, and that's not even factored into my model. I just think right now is a rough period, and that's why right now I do want to average in, but I want to wait for price to settle down and then have that confirmation. And I always get people saying, oh, well, it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market, and that's 100% correct. But again, you want to be prudent with the capital you deploy, right? You could easily just buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, but the dip keeps getting dippier. And so unless you have unlimited capital to continuously buy the dip, well, then what are you doing, right? And so I don't have unlimited capital, and so I like to wait for those opportunities of an uptrend. And so while Tesla's not showing me the opportunity of an uptrend, essentially what I'm doing is just putting capital in other places that is working far more effectively. And then once Tesla does demonstrate that area of an uptrend, well, guess what? I'll buy in, and I didn't have to average down all these other areas. I averaged down at a very low point. And so that's pretty much the view on Tesla. Still believe there's some more selling pressure, but we are getting closer to knowing about that gap fill. Are we going to hold up, or are we going to fall down to kind of that $101 area? But that's pretty much for this video. Hopefully you guys found some value in this video. If you did, again, consider checking out the links in the description below to check out the Push and Profit private group. And also, before you guys go, make sure to check out this next video right over here. And I'll see you guys on that next video. Take care, guys.